I'll be honest right off the bat, there's a lot of hype around white gaming rigs that promise a show-stopping aesthetic but end up feeling like a vanity purchase. I've seen friends order a flashy case for under $100, only to discover the cooling is terrible, the RAM is stuck at 8 GB, and the whole thing chokes on anything beyond a casual Minecraft session. That regret is what makes the first decision a little scary. Do you go cheap and hope for the best? Or do you stretch a bit and get something that actually lives up to the high-end gaming desktop label? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this review, I'm going to walk through whether the Velztorm White Praetix 3D feels like a smarter buy or just another pretty face with a price tag. First, let's talk about the kind of person who would even consider a pre-built like this. If you're a streamer who wants a single machine that can run 4K video editing, the latest triple-digit ray trace titles, and still have a few cores free for your encoding software, the Praetix 3D checks a lot of boxes. The core of the system is an AMD Ryzen 7 9800X3D, which sits on the same Zen 5 foundation as the 7950X3D but with a slightly lower core count. In practice, that means you get the same 3D V-cache boost that makes AMD's X3D line excel at games that lean on cache, like Cyberpunk 2077 or Elden Ring. The 16 GB of VRAM on the RTX 5080, Velztorm lists it as greater than 4090, but the spec sheet says 16 GB is plenty for 1440p and even 4K gaming. And the 2 TB PCIe NVMe SSD means you can load massive worlds in seconds. Not that you'll ever need more than a few games on a 2 TB drive unless you also plan to keep a library of high-resolution video projects. But those headline specs only tell half the story. The real differentiator for me was the cooling solution, a 360mm AIO liquid cooler wrapped in a white-tinted radiator and tubing. In the past, I've owned a pre-built with a stock air cooler that would hit 85 C under sustained load, forcing me to throttle the CPU and ruin the gaming experience. With the Praetix's liquid loop, the temperatures stayed in the low 70s even after a marathon 2-hour session of Red Dead Redemption 2 at max settings. That's not just an isotope, it translates directly into smoother frame times and a quieter room, because the pump's noise is dwarfed by the case's fans that spin more slowly. Now, let's get practical. You'll probably set this up in a small home office or a dedicated gaming den. The case is a full-size tower with a tempered glass side panel and a lot of RGB strips that can be synced to your other peripherals. Because the aesthetics are so front and center, the wiring inside the case is neatly routed, but you still have to make a point of managing the 5-inch thick 360mm radiator and the 1000W power supply. The PSU is oversized for most needs. Most modern gaming rigs run comfortably on a 650W unit, but the extra headroom means you could add a second GPU in the future, or at least not worry about hitting the power ceiling if you overclock. The downside? A 1000W PSU does generate more heat and has a louder fan at peak load, which you'll notice if you keep the case closed and the room is quiet. If you're a casual gamer who mainly plays indie titles or older AAA games, the Praetix is probably overkill. You could get a solid 1080p gaming PC for half the price and still have headroom for a few years. The real value of this machine shows up when you start layering additional workloads, streaming at 1080p with OBS, running virtual machines for development, or using the GPU for AI-assisted content creation. In those scenarios, the combination of a high-cache CPU, 32 GB of DDR5 RAM, and a fast SSD eliminates the bottlenecks that typically force you to upgrade one component at a time. A hidden trade-off I discovered during my testing was the sheer size of the case. The white finish is gorgeous, but it also shows fingerprints and dust more readily than a matte black chassis. A quick wipe with a microfiber cloth keeps it looking showroom ready, but if you're not into regular maintenance, the polish can start to look dull after a few weeks. Also, the case's front panel only has USB-C on one side, the rest are older USB-A ports. If your peripherals are USB-only, you'll need an adapter or a hub, which adds a small but annoying extra step. Another point to consider is the Wi-Fi 7 module. It promises gigabit-class wireless speeds, and in my apartment it easily hit 900 megabits per second on a 6 GHz band. However, Wi-Fi 7 is still rolling out, and many routers in the market don't support the full spec yet. If you have an older router, you'll fall back to Wi-Fi 6 speeds, which are still fine but won't showcase the hardware's full potential. The wired Ethernet port is 2.5 gigabits per second, so plugging directly into your router will give you the best.